Hi, it's Frazer Chesterman of FuturePrint TV. This is episode 4 of the Agfa Inkjet series, and I'm very pleased to have with me Marc Graindourze. Marc.
Thanks, Frazer.
Good to see you. Just explain to anyone who doesn't know, what's your role at Agfa?
Yeah, so my official title is Business Manager Industrial Inks. Basically, I'm an ink expert. I did R&D in the past. I'm now doing the business development and the customer relations and the relations to printhead manufacturers, the companies building engines that need good ink.
Yeah.
And that's my role, to fit together, to make in the end user happy.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about UV inks in this episode. So how does that relate to the Spot On story that's been mentioned a couple of times?
Thanks for the question.
Yeah.
It's a key element of UV inkjet printing. Why people like UV has to do with a lot of aspects, but certainly has to do with the consistency of the print. And the ink is a key factor in that. Okay, you need a stable printer, but if your ink fits with consistency by long shelf life, good batch to batch consistency, and last but not least, excellent jetting reliability, those three factors together make that your print result from the ink perspective is always the same.
Yeah.
And that's where we have focused on.
Yeah. Yeah, consistency, isn't it?
Consistency
really?
of your print result, spot on every time.
Spot on every time. So I just kind of wonder a little bit about what Agfa's, what you've got here and how the research and technology goes into UV to develop the performance.
Yeah, so you are in Mortsel, Agfa headquarters, which is the base of the UV ink, where we developed it from zero back in early 2000.
Yep.
We've invested in big production plants, multiples, all here. We have big analytic department, application specialists, technology specialists. We make the own dispersions here.
Yep.
We do not buy commercial pigment dispersions.
Yep.
We have a key patent know-how, full patented on the dispersion quality, because that's where it starts.
Yeah.
If you have a good pigment dispersion, you can have a good ink quality. When your pigment dispersion is not the best, your ink will not be the best. So we have invested in that. We develop them in-house. We produce the full ink in-house. We do the finishing here. We have the full quality control in Mortsel. On one space. All the experts are within, let's say, a small village.
Sure. And you have many years experience here, don't you?
This is a chemical company from Nature's, 157 years old.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons we went into ink was that it's not so different from coating formulations. We know color, we know pigment dispersion, so it was a logical step to go into inkjet ink. And why UV? Because at that time we started that, UV ink at that moment was smelly, very bad jetting, not sticking to different materials. Short shelf life. That were our targets to solve that, and that's what we did.
So there's always a comment about UV and measurement of UV per litre against other ink options. And we're looking for efficiencies. So how does it fit with your story around UV inks?
Yeah, too many customers focus on the litre price of an ink. Certainly of an inkjet ink, which has a reputation to be expensive, certainly UV ink. But it's all about the total cost of ownership, the total cost of a print, a square meter we typically calculate. And then often the substrate is twice as expensive as the ink because your consumption is really low.
Yep.
Because the coloring power, the color strength of your ink is high. And secondly, you have very low waste when your ink formulation is okay. You have very low printhead maintenance. You can have open head times of more than days. So water-based, you're always doing maintenance. If UV ink, the ink by itself has a stable printing when it's a good formulation. And that saves you a lot of money. You have a high uptime, and your ink load per square meter can be very low depending on the color strength of your ink. So that's the real question.
Yeah, okay. So when we talk about UV inks, we often talk about UV consumable. What do we mean by this?
Yeah, I like more and more when we started to replace ink by consumable.
Yeah.
Because in the old days, when you had an easy substrate, a typical PVC, you needed nothing. You print on it, ink only, and it worked.
Yeah.
The substrate is getting more and more complex and more difficult. So for adhesion and for the top finish, it's more and more popular to use a full approach of a primer, an ink,
Yep.
and a varnish,
Yep.
or two of the three combinations. For instance, if you have an ink that very well sticks to many plastics but not to metal, in case you print on metal, you add the UV jettable curable primer, LED, and like a pre-white, you do a pre-primer, you do the ink on top, and if you really needed a very specific glossy surface, homogeneous, you end with a varnish.
Yeah.
All in one go.
Yeah.
Either it's multi-pass, either it's single pass. In single pass it's easier because it doesn't have any effect on your print speed. When you do the multi-pass, it could affect because you need more heads,
Yeah.
you complicate the printer.
Yeah.
But it's more and more in use today.
Yeah. I guess what we're interested in when we talk about UV inks is where are UV inks going? What is the development? What's the possibilities with UV inks? Where's the future lie with UV inks?
Allow me first to go a little bit back in history.
Okay, yeah, fine.
So when we started, the first UV ink it was all on rigid materials.
Yeah, yeah.
Today, much more is on this really flexible.
Yeah.
And what is especially in wide format, multipass, they expect that one ink can just do it all. So this is the same ink printed on two totally different surfaces.
Yeah.
So we call that the hybrid printers, where you have seen some examples of those printers today. But those Agfa UV inks are general purpose inks. That's a real evolution. You used to have flatbed printing,
Yeah.
a rigid ink. In case you did it with the ink, it cracked.
Yeah.
Then you had really roll-to-roll, stretchable ink. And what we have now is a general purpose
yeah,
ink.
exactly.
Multi-purpose.
Yeah, multi-purpose, exactly.
And,
yeah.
and then your customer can invest in a machine. He has a roll-to-roll option, he has a flatbed option, and he can print all those mix of substrates on one machine. Of course, a very big customer could have dedicated machines.
But it gives
the smaller
the
shops,
flexibility, isn't it?
yeah, and your job changes.
Yeah, sure, sure.
This month you have more of that work, next month you have more of other work. So I would say that is in what we typically call silent display world, but it's much more today.
Yeah.
But in that field with multipass, you have the real evolution to a general purpose.
Brilliant.
But when we go to more industrial, where single pass
Sure.
or more bespoke systems, there you have another evolution. There you have specialism. For instance, in the edge band, furniture edge band, they typically print on ABS or other plastic substrates, and you mimic wood grain designs.
Yep.
And there, it's all about output. So you print them 30, 40 centimeters, you cut them later, you print them up to 50 meters a minute. Instead of gravure, which is very slow, dedicated, you need cylinders, you replace by inkjet. It's all
Yep.
short run.
Yep.
A fantastic application
Yeah.
for UV inkjet.
Yeah.
Because the stick has the right surface, you do that by the ink design. So you have a different trend in the single pass industrial where you go for an ink fitting a rather limited range
Yep.
of substrates and
Yep.
applications.
So real scope for different applications, isn't it, with UV?
So for me, UV is there to stay.
Yeah.
Water-based is a good challenger
Yeah.
and will be used where possible, for sure.
Sure.
But it's not going to replace UV where UV is strong.
Yeah. Listen, thank you very much for giving us a bit of insight into the UV inks that Agfa are developing. And I think what we've covered here is exactly as you said in statements earlier. It's spot on, isn't it?
That's a summary in 2 words.
It's a summary in 2 words. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the Agfa SPOT ON series. You've now seen 4 episodes covering a range of different topics. We hope you've enjoyed hearing some of the Agfa inkjet specialists talking about the different areas of interest. And we hope you've also enjoyed the way in which the Agfa headquarters reflects truly across all aspects of the Agfa offering. And in truth, we believe this is all about ideas that turn to innovations. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope to catch up with you soon.